Hello ladies and gents, welcome to the first of many Rift videos, brought to you by yours truly. Today's video is going to be going over the basics of the Mage class. We will discuss the pros and cons of the Mage, along with giving various tidbits of information about various souls, and other stuff such as that. This is going to be a very basic startup to many guides I have planned, so shall we get started? Mages wear cloth gear that focuses on intellect and spell power. Rings, wands, and other such non-wardrobe oriented items with higher wisdom than intellect are mainly for clerics, but the rule applies: an upgrade is an upgrade. But do be considerate to our cleric friends when it comes to this higher wisdom gear. On that note, it should also be added that not even the melee soul Harbinger gets much use out of anything labeled melee or physical. It is also noted that spell crit is your lowest priority stat. Mages use a secondary resource called charge for some of their spells. Charge is used in many different ways, the most common of which being enacting a buff on yourself, such as Charge Blade for the Harbinger soul. Most of the time this buff drains your charge over time. Some allow charge to be regened, while others restrict recharge altogether. Mages can fulfill the roles of support, healing, melee DPS, and range DPS. They are also the only calling that has two different souls dedicated to pets. They, however, are the only calling that can also not tank. Sad face. So, now let's talk about the souls that the mage has in it. First, we'll start off with the Archon. This is one of the mage's two support souls. The Archon is a soul that infuses and masters buffing his party and debuffing his enemies. The Archon's 41-point talent is Patron's Rage, which deals fire damage channeled and refreshes all the mage's auras. The mage has 4 of these potent spells, which can be applied before combat and last 4 minutes. The mage's 61-point root ability is point to point, which allows the mage to target an ally and drop a totem at his or her feet and at the targets as well. This gives any ally standing nearby an extra ability button that allows them to port from one totem to the other. It should also be noted that every point put into Archon increases the mage's overall damage by 1%, meaning that it's 61% when all points are put in. While the Archon focuses on buffs and debuffs, the Dominator on the other hand focuses on control. The Dominator is the second support soul of the mage, which increases the mage's area of effect spells per point put in, and is a master at making the enemy's life hell. The Dominator has many spells that make a devastating target to opponents in PvP, and a valuable ally in PvE. Reflective Command causes the next hostile spell to be cast on an ally to be reflected back at the target. The Mana Wrench drains the target's mana, energy, and power, making the enemy more vulnerable to attacks. Chloromancers are the healers of the mage calling, and do so mostly by inflicting damage upon their foes. Every point put into this soul increases their healing by 1.5%. One of the more key abilities that the Chloromancer has in this soul is Soul Tether, which is an in-combat res, an Essence Surge, which heals the target for 100% of the mage's maximum health, which is great for last-second saves on tanks. It should also be noted that many leveling and solo play specs use at least 8 points into the chloral tree to decrease their downtime and increase survivability when things go horribly wrong. Now that we have covered the support souls and the healing soul, let's talk about the DPS. There are a number of those with all their own perks. One being melee, which is new to the Storm Legion expansion, 2 of which, as said earlier, being souls that are dedicated to pets. Then there's the Dot Master, and the last 2 specs being a single target burst DPS and a heavy AoE hitter. So, let's start it first with the Harbinger. The Harbinger is a melee spec that allows the mage to transform their weapon into either a scythe, a spear, or a 2-handed sword. The majority of the spells that the Harbinger uses are instant or made instant via talents. Your Eldritch Armor allows you to turn a spell that normally has a cast time into an instant. You of course are going to need to dive into another soul to do this because, as said earlier, all their spells are instant cast. Every point put into this soul increases your damage done by 1%. Elementalists are masters of the elements, and this includes elemental pets as well. At an early level, your lesser earth elemental will keep you alive while switching out for your lesser air elemental at level 12 when doing instances and other group play is a wise choice indeed. Another mechanic that is added to this playstyle is cycling. This is a system where your spells are cycled through a process, such as you starting off with a fire spell and then moving to earth and then to air and then to water and then back to fire to finish the cycle. Each spell is used right will increase its damage by 10% when max points are put in. Every point put into the soul increases your damage done by 0.5% and your pet's damage done by 4%. Necromancers are the second of the pet-using souls for the mage that focuses on the dark arts of bringing the dead to their side and incorporating death magic into their abilities, mainly in the form of damage over time, with a few casted ones as well. You get a taking pet at level 8, which is a great choice for leveling. The mechanic for the Necro is a stacking debuff that the pet puts on the target called Deathly Calling. Many of your abilities either need this debuff to work or to increase its damage while on its target. This can make for great DPS, but causes the mage to suffer on fights where there are a lot of targets switching. Every point in this soul increases your damage by 0.5% and your pet's damage by 4%. Dots! More dots! This is the main theory behind the Warlock. Now, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily any secondary mechanic to the Warlock, but dot management in itself is a mechanic that is pretty hard to master at times. Warlocks have no problem hurting themselves while increasing their damage, or to make sure that they have the mana to keep their deadly onslaught going. Every point in this soul increases your base damage done by 0.5% and your dot damage by 1%. Sorry that there's not a lot to talk about this one, I don't have a ton of experience with it. Oh, Stormcallers, you have too many area of effect abilities, which is why you're amazing. Being masters of air and water gives Stormcaller some great damage capability in area of effect fights, and a lot of control through snares, stuns, and knockbacks. But you must also master Electrified and the Hypothermia debuff, as these are increasing your damage done by certain moves while they're up. This soul might have you spouting off something along the lines of unlimited power! Just don't turn to the dark side, kiddos. Each point in this spec increases your area of effect damage done by 1% and your normal damage done by 0.5%. The last soul that we're going to be talking about is the Pyromancer. Now, I've talked about my favorite spec being the first one that we went over, but don't think that because this is the last one, it's my least favorite. Oh no. Pyros, well, they tend to burn things. And I might sound a bit happy about that, which is not healthy, is it? Oh well. But what is healthy is the amount of burst damage that you can get out of a pyro. It's a little bit insane, to be completely honest. And they have some very good damage over time abilities as well to give you some considerable consistent damage as well. Every point put into the spec increases your flat damage done by 1%, and as said, pyros like to burn stuff, and it only makes sense that the secondary mechanic of this soul is maintaining their combust on their target. Later down the tree, you get two such abilities that spark a short cooldown between each other. Flame Sigil increases your fire damage done per stack of combust on the target, and Extinguish allows you to cast fireballs instantly, depending on how many stacks of combust is on the target. Always fun to burn things. And this about covers the basics that you need to know about being a mage. Sure, you can't tank, and in fact, you're pretty much squishy as hell, but that's okay. Other than the Dominator spec, which I haven't had a whole lot of time to play with, every other spec seems to be pretty fun at what they do. Now, stay tuned for more videos to come up in the future, and more specific guides on certain specs and expert dungeons. Until then, special thanks to Axel, Diabolic, Kate, Blaine, and the many other great guild members from Prometheus for having helped me, letting me in their guild, and just overall being pretty damn awesome. If you'd like to join us at Prometheus, we are on the Fablight server. You can go to our website and sign up, and you can probably hit up one of the officers in, chat or whatever. They're usually around. They're pretty trolly. They lurk a lot. They're kind of creepy, which is why, I like them. But other than that, guys, don't forget to like the video, leave some feedback below if I missed anything, and most importantly, guys, have yourselves a wonderful day.